Hi guys, so today I want to talk about the Nexus conference that I just went to this past weekend in Aspen, Colorado. First, I do have to say that it is absolutely gorgeous up there, and I am truly blessed to have been able to take this trip. Everything just kind of fell into place last minute. I got to go, I got to meet amazing people, I got to meet Ron Paul, which was probably the highlight of the trip. And in general, I got to learn more about Nexus. So what is Nexus? Nexus is a cryptocurrency that is really trying to fix all of the problems that we see with Bitcoin. Obviously, Bitcoin is an amazing invention, and the blockchain that it's built on is an even more amazing technology. But because it was so experimental, and Satoshi didn't even think that it was going to go very far, at this point, Bitcoin is back up to about $4,000 a coin. He obviously didn't think that it was going to be so successful. So some of the problems with Bitcoin is that the transaction fees are very high and the transaction process is very slow. This makes microtransactions pretty near impossible, which is what's needed for mass adoption of this currency around the world. One of the examples that's always used is Bitcoin right now is back up to $4,000 a coin. So, but nobody can buy a cup of coffee with it. And if people can't buy the small necessities that they use in everyday life, how is this technology really going to be adopted in the future? One of the other problems is that the mining pools that are mining all over the world have actually centralized the Bitcoin protocol. Again, Bitcoin was created as a decentralized currency that nobody could control, but if these mining pools are the only ones that are mining the coin and really controlling the protocol, because miners get to vote on what the protocol is going to be, then it really defeats the purpose of the decentralization. So one of the other problems is that the resource requirement is very high. To be able to mine Bitcoin, you need a lot of resources, you need a lot of energy to be able to keep the network running, which is why these mining pools were created in the first place, to centralize that energy requirement and to be able to afford all the high costs of electricity that go along with running the network. Because Colin wrote the code from the ground up, taking into consideration all the problems that we're seeing with Bitcoin now, Nexus is actually going to be a more improved cryptocurrency. Nexus has three core principles. The first one is efficiency and scalability within the code, and the way that the team is doing that is through a lower level database, which is a much more lighter database that improves speed and processing power. It also scales organically to keep up with the transactions instead of what's going on in Bitcoin, which is people are trying to create scalability solutions after the fact. In the Nexus code, it's going to happen organically. The second principle is enhanced security. The team is actually working on being quantum resistant. Depending on who you talk to, quantum computers could be in our future in the next 5 to 10 years, and with that comes the problem of cryptography, which is really the basis of the blockchain technology and all of the cryptocurrencies out there. So the team is taking a proactive stance in trying to create an algorithm that will prevent the quantum computer from affecting Nexus in a negative way. On top of that, Nexus actually has three different mining channels, hash, prime, and proof of stake, which all work together to secure the other two, which means that a 51% attack is much less likely and much more expensive to carry out. And of course, the third principle is the low Earth cube satellite mesh system that is going to create our decentralized internet. Now, eventually they do want this Li-Fi internet, which means light fidelity internet, to be free for all users. And because it's in space, no government or nation can actually control it. Yay, we get to have free information again, because obviously the monopolies and organizations that have been trying to take over the internet and centralize it don't care about the freedom of information. One of the things that Keith Smith talked about in his roundtable this past weekend is that he came on to the project from a different project that had failed. But he had this idea that the hardware of the blockchain technology is just as important as the software. So if we want to decentralize from these government systems and from these centralized organizations and monopolies, then we actually have to use our own hardware to be able to do that. Hardware that other people can't control. You know, once the Nexus team sends out these cube satellites and connects all the network, then it can pretty much run by itself, unless, you know, one of the satellites comes down or more need to be sent out to replace some that are not usable for whatever reason. Obviously, anything can happen in space, so we need to look out for those contingencies. One of the reasons that I think this is a viable project is because Colin is actually working with his dad, Jim Cantrell, and I missed his talk on Thursday because I actually had to fly in a little bit later, but I heard it on the live stream on the Nexus YouTube channel, and this man is absolutely brilliant. I mean, he got into the space industry pretty young and just had an amazing life of adventure and technological advances and really conquering the last frontier. He is the co-founder of SpaceX and also the founder and CEO of Vector Space. Basically, he wanted to move away from the large aerospace industry into these smaller, more manageable satellites. And of course, you know, being Colin's dad, they decided to put their heads together and actually use this technology to create something within the blockchain industry. Very exciting stuff. Now, what I took away from the conference the most is the vision that Colin has of decentralizing everything and bringing freedom back to humanity. One of the most powerful quotes that I heard from him was, "I still believe in human ingenuity." And I absolutely agree with that sentiment. I think humans are absolutely amazing, and we can literally create anything. We can go beyond the laws of physics. We can go beyond the realms of technology. I mean, just look at some of the people that we've had in our history. Tesla was able to create different technologies that we are now rediscovering way before anything was even possible. But he knew that it was, and he knew the science behind it, and he was able to take that material and write it down and actually create experiments based on his findings. Another thing that Colin had said that really stuck with me was that people are seeing a direct reflection of their beliefs in the currency, in the value of cryptocurrency, the transmission, and the services that this industry has created. We are seeing the freedom that we have been looking for actually become more realistic by day because of these technologies and because of the power of people coming together and creating new things. Colin's sentiments were echoed by the other brilliant people that are on the Nexus core team. Preston, who is the communications director, talked about how they want people to be free. That is the vision of Nexus. That is what they're trying to accomplish. Keith Smith echoed that sentiment as well, and all of them really talked about how this is a community project and they want everybody to be involved. Multiple times they mentioned that they do not want to be in control, that they continuously want to decentralize and continuously want to involve more people in the project. When I met Colin, I right away told him that I was completely on board with this and I wanted to support them, and I really wanted to be Nexus girl and a huge ambassador of the cryptocurrency and really spread it around and tell people about it and let them see what kind of future we can create for humanity. And you know what Colin said to me? He said, go for it. He's like, I don't want to control you. He's like, we all know what we need to do, so we just need to go out there and do it. And so I want to take on the role of actually helping to spread the word about Nexus and to make videos about it so that people understand this technology. Now, I'm not very technical, but I do understand concepts and big picture visions very well, and I do understand how the technology actually works. I've been in the Bitcoin space for about a year now, which is a pretty small amount of time. But I have been trading it and buying it and investing it and following all of the news and talking to all of the people that are involved in the space. So I think I have a pretty good grasp of this technology at this point, although of course I have a ton to learn. I am by no means an expert, but I do believe that this is one of the ways that we can continuously spread freedom. Now, I am a voluntarist, but I also understand how libertarianism can help us achieve our goals. I can see how the cryptocurrency community can help us achieve our goals. I can see how the spiritual community can help us achieve our goals. Really, it's about every single person finding a niche, finding something that they're passionate about, and then working in that space to bring us to a more free society. Now, the rest of the conference was amazing. I got to meet Ron Paul, who is definitely one of the heroes of the liberty community and really one of the heroes of the world. You know, he took on the U.S. government from the inside, and for his entire life, he was consistent with the message of liberty, consistent with the message of self-ownership and personal responsibility, and sound Austrian economics with deflationary policies. He continuously voted against war and against increasing our budget and against having all of that U.S. government debt that we are now in. Guys, the future looks a little bleak, but because the free market has created this amazing tech, we actually can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we can use these different technologies to really push forward and create a new and better world for all of us. I do want to take a moment to talk about Ron Paul's speech. It was a little bit different than what we hear from him in the public eye, because this was a conference that was full of libertarianists and voluntarists. He actually was much more candid about his views than I have ever seen him. He totally outed everybody in government, probably besides his son and maybe a couple of other congressmen and senators, as sociopaths, which is exactly what they are. But to hear him actually speak so candidly to that fact was a really amazing sight. One of the other quotes that stood out for me was when Ron Paul was talking about the market. And, you know, he mentioned that we don't have capitalism in our system and we don't have the free market. What we have is a very socialist economy that is centralized by the government and all of these big corporations. And he talked about how the black market is actually the real market, meaning that is the free market. Because the black market is unregulated by government and it's basically in the counter economy underneath their radar for the most part, it functions like a free market. The prices fluctuate with supply and demand instead of with regulations and controls. And that was really, really amazing to hear him say that, because it's not something that he would say on stage in front of Congress or in front of his constituents, but it is something that he felt comfortable talking to us about. In general, his entire speech was very inspiring, as always, and very optimistic. I love his speaking style because he always talks about the problem and then he stops and then he always talks about the solution. He talks about the negative and then brings it back to the positive, which I think is really important when we try to communicate with people about what's going on in our world. A lot of things look very bleak, and I know because I keep up with it and I talk about it all the time, and I'm going to start doing these videos talking about it even more. And I get sad, I get angry, I get really frustrated, and in general, sometimes it really, really hurts my heart about how our humans, how our people, our brothers and sisters are being treated by these different systems and this matrix that we're living in. And what is so, so important as a freedom fighter and as a human in general, as you're waking up and finding out more about this stuff, is to continuously take breaks and to think about the positive things. We have more and more solutions coming out because of the positivity and the optimism within the community. And hopefully that's going to keep going as we create more real ways to get out of this matrix. Another very exciting announcement that was made at the Nexus Conference this past weekend is Roger Ver is creating the Free Society. He is in talks with different governments to buy a nice chunk of land so that some of the voluntarists and libertarians and just freedom-loving people could actually go out and be able to live in a community without coercion. Everything in his free society is based on peace, and what I love about it is that he doesn't have all the answers. He doesn't want to control this new society, but he does believe and understand, because it's not just a belief, it's an understanding that the free market does provide. In the words of Jeff Berwick, he started talking about the economic collapse in 2009. He talked about the credit bubble, he talked about the devaluation of the dollar, and when people asked him what he saw happening in the future, he basically said, I don't know, but I'm sure the free market will provide. And a year later, he discovered Bitcoin, and the free market did provide. A couple of really, really intelligent guys got together and created this new technology to free the world from financial servitude. Roger Ver has adopted the same philosophy. He might not have all of the answers to how this society is going to function without government or without centralized police or without centralized courts, but he knows that the free market will provide. And once you give people the option to live somewhere that's free and prosperous, the first thing on their mind isn't going to be, how can I steal from my neighbor, or how can I kill my neighbor for their resources. The first thing on humans' minds will be, how can I help my neighbor? How can we build something together? You know, when you're presented with the opportunity of, hey, I need something and I have these skills, but to get that thing that I want, I need some other skills, then you're naturally going to seek out people with those other skills, come together, try to figure out what works for both of you, and then work together to create that new. In general, I want to say a huge thank you to the entire Nexus team for throwing this event. A special thank you to Colin and Jim Cantrell and to all of the investors and all of the sponsors that backed this conference. I want to say thank you to the amazing friends who helped me get to Aspen, Colorado, to actually be there, and all of the friends that I met there that I had such a fun, great time with. The anarchist community is really, really amazing. Yes, of course, there's a few bad eggs here and there, and you do have to be careful because we are still living in this slave-type system that kind of brings out the worst in people, but I do believe that most of us are really good on the inside, and a lot of us make mistakes, but for the most part, within the liberty community, I don't see those mistakes as being malicious. We were at the bar on Thursday night, the first night of the conference, and Tatiana Maroz performed, and she did a beautiful job, and at some point, I just looked around as she was playing, and the bar was full of these people who believe in freedom, and I actually posted on my Facebook and said, I'm in a bar full of people who don't want to aggress against me, and that is truly utopian. And I want this kind of utopia to be available to every single person, not just in some tiny little town in Colorado, but across the entire world. The more prosperous we are, the less we want to aggress against others. When you're happy, you don't want to cause other people pain. But when you're sad or angry, when you're destitute, when you are struggling, that's when a lot of people make these decisions that hurt other people. And I want to eradicate that from this planet, and I absolutely don't think that it's impossible. I absolutely think that each one of us can stand up for ourselves, stand in our power, and be in control of our emotions, our words, our thoughts, and our actions, and to only do good towards other human beings. Yes, there are still going to be challenges. Yes, that we can still get hurt. Feelings can be hurt. People can be insensitive. But that doesn't mean that we are allowed to take an action against another human being and to hurt them in any physical way. I think that we can rise above that. And I do see that within the communities that I'm in. I'm excited to be on the Nexus team. I'm excited to see where this project goes. I'm excited to learn more about this industry and about these currencies and about the technology. I've got a long way to go, but I think the friends that I've made along the way are an incredible source of information, an incredible source of inspiration and motivation. to achieve my personal goals and also to achieve our community goals for the world. So again, thank you so much for everybody who threw the Nexus Conference and for those who came out to the Nexus Conference. I had a blast. I learned a lot, which is really what life is all about. We're here to learn, we're here to experience, we're here to meet new people and discuss amazing ideas and to work on awesome projects. And I mean, how can you not be excited about a cryptocurrency that is going to run on a mesh satellite network in actual space? I mean, these are probably my most three favorite things. For anyone who knows me, I wanted to be an astronaut and an astronomer when I was little, and I think most little kids did in the Soviet Union. But it's just amazing how far we've come as a society in that respect. We still have a long way to go in other aspects, but I think we can do it. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you think about the stuff that I said, and I hope you enjoyed my recap of the conference. I'm sure I've missed a lot of stuff, but you know what? Next time, you just have to come out with me and see it for yourself, because I promise you, you will not regret it. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.